The closure of schools and businesses is no doubt affecting people's lives today, but these actions are they effective in slowing the economy or driving change as the organizers seek? So Michael Orlando is an economist at the CU Denver Business School, a former research economist at the Federal Reserve. So Dr. Orlando, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We were chatting just a little bit.
Yeah.
I have many questions. So we're seeing a shift from marches and protests to people trying to get down, people to slow down their spending. Yeah. Does that work?
I think it's important to define what you mean by work.
Yes.
Like what is it that people are trying to achieve? I think it's more interesting actually to ask, why would people spend their time doing this? And then if they're incurring a cost to do it that they wouldn't otherwise incur, it's probably achieving something. So then think about what are the channels through which it might be achieving something.
Okay, so can you walk us through the ripple effects when we're talking about what they're achieving? When schools close and parents are forced to stay home, that affects productivity, where people work, and the businesses themselves are losing money when they shut down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all, each of us individually can imagine how it's affecting us. If you're participating, obviously you might be taking some time off of work yourself. You might be using a sick day. If your kids are home, you might have to use a sick day to deal with that. So it's going to have those kinds of ripple effects. Ultimately, I think one of the interesting things or important things to consider when you're trying to aggregate this up and contemplate how it can work is that really the difference between shiftable consumption and non-shiftable consumption. So specifically service consumption versus goods consumption. Because I'm not going to, if this happens and I decide not to participate by not buying my refrigerator now, I'm going to just buy it a few days later, right? I'm not going to buy, and I'm not going to buy more refrigerators in my lifetime.
Right.
So durable goods tend to be shifted in time, and it's probably not a big impact. But 70% of the economy is consumption, and 70% of that consumption is services. So roughly 50% of GDP is services, and that's the kind of thing that you can not consume now and shift. And when you shift it, if I shift my haircuts or I shift my cups of coffee, it's not like I go to Starbucks on Monday morning and drink 3 cups of coffee because I didn't consume them. They're gone forever, kind of the way COVID put this divot in the economy that just we have to suffer with forever. It just pushed all consumption off into the future. So the present value of that pushing consumption in the future is the cost of it.
Okay, well, that's so fascinating. Okay, so many of the businesses that were closing today are small or independently owned. So how does it affect that sector?
Yeah, so I mean, we often think of the small independent businesses as probably having the thinner margins, and it's going to impact them more significantly. In one respect, that's true. So you've seen some businesses who the owners feel, as you reported in your entry here, and you reported some owners did close, other owners didn't feel they could, but they're donating profits or they're trying to participate. So that's kind of the downside. But I think there can be an upside to it also, because when moments like this happen, when movements like this happen, it's basically consumers asking producers and suppliers to take a side on something. And so to the extent that this sort of shakes up consumption patterns and each of those small businesses sends a signal of the type of producer they are, it could wind up leading to brand improvement for them. So think of it as kind of a branding moment. And that's what's so scary for the bigger retailers also, is they're being asked to actually articulate where they stand on a particular issue that they'd rather stay out of.
Yes, and that's hard for those big companies to want to do. Okay, so we know we're a consumer-driven economy. How big would this strike have to get to really impact the markets or any gross domestic products?
I think this goes back kind of to your first question. The reality is, if we just think about that divot in consumption that's being pushed forward, all the haircuts and the cups of coffee, I mean, you'd probably have to, I just did a back-of-the-envelope calculation last night, and I thought I could probably rationalize it would take something like a month of the sustained activity of roughly a third of the population cutting their consumption by 10% to maybe take 10 basis points off of annual growth this year.
Okay.
But I really think, again, that's the wrong way to think about it, because these events are signaling opportunities, and they're signaling demands by consumers and by the voting public. And they're asking they're asking producers to take a stand. So the channel through which it actually affects anyone is to the extent that they don't feel producers are taking a stand that they are comfortable with. That can be reflected in long-term expectations of what their revenues and profits are, which all gets capitalized into the stock market, which affects our 401ks, and then you start to get the attention of political decision makers who are getting phone calls from corporate chiefs and people who were worried about their 401ks.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Orlando, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Kind of break it down a little bit for us on this day of where people aren't quite sure how the impact would be. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Such great insight. Thank you both.